Hello folks and welcome to this week's video. Now, I was all geared up to review a phono amplifier from a UK company, but I think I'll delay that by a week. Now, reason for that? Well, last week I reviewed a high-end platter mat called the Strata from another UK outfit, Origin Live, link above. In that video I compared it to several other platter mats to see how it ranked. And I ranked it so well, I gave it a rating of 10 out of 10. So, smiles all round then. Hey, I naively thought to myself, job done. Well, job done until I looked at the comments section, just down there. And I read questions from other social media platforms as well. Now, the launch of the Strata got some of you thinking, which is a good thing. If my reviews can do that to you, then I'm a happy man. The questions revolved around this subject. How would the Strata perform if you put a clamp on top of it? Or a stabilizer? Also, if you're familiar with Origin's own Gravity 1, which is a thing all on its own, how would that perform with the mat? Now, some of you already have these items in your possession, so if you did go out and buy yourself a Strata, would these accessories be redundant? In effect, if you modded, kinda, the Strata, how would it perform? So to, as it were, keep the continuity before we get to the phono amplifier, and that's a bit of a preview for next week, hey, and while we're on the subject, I decided to pay a return visit to the Strata and tie up those loose ends. So a relatively short-ish video this week, but look, you asked the questions and I'm here to serve and all that jazz. This is more of a general video, so no review-like pros and cons and no rating for this one. So before I did my moddy mini review testy things, I retained the same setup, the same hi-fi setup as I used last time around when reviewing the Strata. Check out what that is in the description. I also used the same vinyl, which was Coldplay and Keely Smith, a bit of vocal jazz. And of course I played the Strata on its own as is. And then I brought in a couple of clamps, one from Michelle and one from pro-ject. And I had a quick listen to them, and my thoughts on the clamps, well, they kind of ignore the mat. They really couple themselves to the spindle, which means they couple themselves to the bearing underneath the platter. And that is what's being damped, which is great if the bearing itself is not of the finest tolerances. And a clamp will do a wonderful job right there in that case. But in this particular case, the clamp was an unnecessary tool. So it produced, in the end, a slightly claustrophobic mid-range, quite a rolled treble. It reduced the air, it reduced the space in the upper frequencies, and I said goodbye to the clamps. Next, I have a tried and trusted heavy stabilizer from Oyaide, which damps via nothing else than weight and mass and sits loosely over the spindle. This will have more of an effect on the mat itself, interacting directly with it. The sonic result, well, I felt the heavy stabilizer damped the music rather excessively, I would say. Sure, there was a slightly larger thump to the bass, extra mass to the lower frequencies, but the lightness of touch across the treble and the upper mids, well, they were reduced, and that meant a loss of sparkle, a loss of precision, and rather dulling of the fine detail. So I moved on to the much lighter HRS Stabiliser, which relies less on mass to do its job, and its aim is more to damp the vinyl record itself using the built-in polymer at the base of the stabilizer. The result of this one relies more on personal bias than straight judgment, I would say. I can see why the HRS would be liked on this particular setup, as it adds control to the bass. It fixes the vocals dead center at the point of the stereo image. It increases focus. It increases precision. But again, it does suck a little bit of the life out of the upper mids. It closes in on the soundstage from left and right. it loses a little bit of excitement and exuberance. It kind of dulls the upper reaches of the extreme edges of the mid-range. Personally, I preferred the HRS Stabiliser off. You might think differently though, and it's worth a demo to see if that's what you prefer. Finally, I added Origin Live's very own Gravity One itself. Now, you can see a review of that one up here. Again, if you want to know more, click on that link, so I won't repeat myself here. Suffice to say that this looks like a stabilizer, acts like a stabilizer, and isn't really a stabilizer. It has no weight at all. Near enough no weight anyway, but it does damp in a very targeted, very carefully considered fashion. It tends to do just enough and no more, really. So with the Gravity One on top of the Strata, how does it sound? I tell you what, it sounds wonderful. That's how it sounds. My goodness, the Gravity One, it continues to surprise me. Now look, we're talking about a platter mat here that I've just given a 10 out of 10 rating to. And it's the best platter mat you can buy, well, in my experience at any rate. And here comes the Gravity One, and it turns that 10 into 11, because the Gravity One actually improves the Strata. So what's the Gravity One doing here? Well, it adds a soundstage-wide touch of focus. Just a dab, just a little bit. But that's like adding the merest touch to a camera lens, which takes the image from one that is slightly blurred to pin sharp. That's what the Gravity One does to the Strata. It locks the vocals dead center into the stereo image. It tidies the percussion, giving extra pace, extra detail. It adds little bits of focus to the acoustic guitar. The strumming on that guitar had extra bite now. And it does all of this, and it did all of this without losing any of that air, any of the space, without losing life and excitement, without losing detail, but adding an overall focus to the performance, which I've got to say, surprised me. I was not expecting that. I went into this entire video fully expecting to say to you, you don't need anything, just the mat, enjoy yourself. So I was surprised, put it that way. That's the end of this little feature video basically, but before we go, I'll give you a few final thoughts and you can muse upon those. Hey. The Origin Live Strata Platter Mat is a thing of wonder and a brilliant addition to a turntable if your budget will stretch. Testing that mat with a series of clamps and stabilizers, in my opinion, only harms the final sonic output until a Gravity One is added to the Strata. Together, the Strata and Gravity One not only lower the noise floor and add precision and focus, but they present exquisite detail to your ears. Now, let's not forget this, because this is a danger when you concentrate on shiny new accessories. But in effect, both of these products, the Strata and the Gravity One, they're allowing you to get the very best from your turntable. And that's what this is all about. Never forget that. These things are only here to allow your turntable to work as advertised. Basically, these accessories have got your turntable's back. But I tell you what, your turntable, the Strata Platter Mat, and the Gravity One Stabiliser, what a team! The three amigos. Oh yes, what you've got here is a killer trio. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this video. And I want to thank you for basically arranging this video, because if it wasn't for your comments, this video would not exist. So thank you. Thank you very much for this video. Now down below, down there. If you could click on the like and subscribe buttons, please, that would just help this channel just to grow a little bit more. And further down, there are links to my Facebook group and my website and my Patreon page, and you can see this week's brand new hi-fi news, etc. video. And it's there now for you to peruse. Check it out. Lots of other stuff on the Patreon page as well. Buyer's guides, features, all the videos, room tours, all of that stuff. So I'll be back next Friday with a music alert video, and the following Sunday with a review of a phono amplifier. I ain't gonna say more than that, folks, unless you've been following my little community tab, wherever it is down there, is it? And that gives you a bit more info, hey. Anyway, I hope to have your company at that time. Until that time, folks, bye-bye for now.